Hello and welcome. In these next videos, I simply want to share some things that have caused me to pause and to consider. And some of these things are in relation to the law. I used to think the law, especially the Old Testament, that's old, it's no longer relevant. I don't need it as much as I do the New Testament. Now, I may read it because, there's good characters. There's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's Moses, there's Joseph, there's David. And I can actually even learn from some other mistakes. But I don't need it. But here's something that has caused me to stop and to think for just a second. If we go to Romans chapter 7, verse 12, it says, "So then the law is holy, and the commandment is holy, and righteous, and good." But when I pause and I think about that, Paul is saying that the law is holy. Now, I think I can make a pretty safe assumption that if something is holy, it must be good. It must be good for me, and it must come from God. So why do I not want to focus on something that Paul himself calls it holy? Well, let's go to Psalms 119, verse 1, and let's see if we can gain some insight in that. So Psalms 119, verse 1 says, "Now blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord." Now, there's a couple of things to look at here. First of all, the word law in Hebrew is the word Torah. It actually means law, instruction, direction. So if we reread that verse with one of those words, let's see how it sounds. It says, "How blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the direction of the Lord." Direction? Well, why am I walking towards the Lord? Because Jesus is in me. Why am I walking towards Him? Because that's not the only verse that talks about walking. That's the other thing we need to consider. Walking towards the Lord. Because we also hear, walk humbly with your God. And even Jesus takes this concept and talks about it too. Let's go over to John chapter 12, verse 35. It says, "So Jesus said to them, 'For a little while longer the light is among you. Walk while you have the light, so that darkness will not overtake you. He who walks in the darkness does not know where he goes.'" So even Jesus is talking about this. Walk in the light. The darkness may not overtake you. And he also says that those who are in darkness don't know where they're going. They have no sense of direction. And so that causes me to think, because here's the other thing. Paul says, work out your salvation. And I've often thought, what am I working out? I'm saved. It's a done deal. He lives in me, and what am I working for? What does that mean? Well, that's what I want to talk about in the next video. Let's talk more about salvation and see if we can gain some insights from that.